Welcome to DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, so let's get started. All right, welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today I have special guest, Jennifer Pope. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. I saw your name as Jennifer. I was like, I'll just call it Jennifer because it's what's on the screen, but
It's
is that
fine.
right? Jennifer's good? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, so to me, you're very popular in the running community, and you're really fast, and you've done a lot of awesome things in the running area. So I would love to get to know a little bit about you, who you are, how you got started with running. How about that?
Yeah,
Let's start with
sure.
that.
I honestly I'm more of somewhat of a newer runner comparatively to some other people who run in college or run even in younger. I did not start running until the pandemic.
No way.
I ran like for fun on a weekend. I would randomly jump into a half marathon, but I grew up playing soccer and
That makes sense.
I played soccer actually 5 nights a week. And it was up until the pandemic, they closed down all the soccer places.
Mhm.
So for a while, I wasn't really doing too much. I just going out for a run. Just you're locked in the house for those 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks became 3 weeks, and it's okay. I need to do something.
3
I'm
weeks
not
became almost
exercising
2
like I
years.
used to. Let's go for a run. And again, I always ran a little bit. When you look at like times comparatively, you think you're just naturally fast back then, but so much different when you start like training. But no, I started just running like almost every day for a bit just because it was just something to get some type of exercise. And then there was something like train for a 5K each week and you keep improving your 5K time each week. And this is all virtual. So I
Yeah,
was just like, okay, here's a little silly challenge I can do. And
it's crazy.
I started training, or not even think you could probably call it training then. It was more like just literally trying to improve a 5K time every single week.
Doing what every new
And
runner would do.
sorry?
Doing what every new runner would do.
Yeah, yeah.
Just go out and run fast every weekend.
Yep, pretty much. And so, and then honestly, not competitive. I got more serious about it when I ran. Finally, things were starting to open up, especially outdoor races. Those are the only things that were opening at the time because it was outside. And I went to one of the Plano Pacers races. If you're familiar, they have them every month. They're great for the community. I love them. I
Yeah.
still use them for workouts.
I
And
just signed
honestly,
up this year, by the way, with them, and I'm
you
going to
did
start
set up.
going yeah.
Yeah. Good, good. I think I've signed up now. Oh my goodness. Like it's been years. I just renew it. It's so easy because it's cheap. It's fun. They're great people. But I ran there and there was a girl there who was actually really fast. And I was like, wow, this person is incredible. And then so I was like, I wonder how she just got so fast. And I met the people and over time it was like they're talking about training and I didn't even know what a tempo was versus like intervals or absolutely no idea.
Of course, that's okay.
So I did again what any really smart person would do. And I Googled, step back is I had seen she had run some marathons and I think she broke the tape at Cowtown. I was really impressed. I
Who is this person's
did
name? I'm interested now.
Maddie Stier. Do you know who that is?
No, no.
Okay. I still run with her today. We just ran this morning, but she's very fast and she was just impressed me immediately. From afar, you're like the creeper who doesn't really know who the person is yet till you're in with the group. But no, from there, I went on Google and I downloaded, or I saw she ran a sub-3 marathon and I was like, wow, like that is insane. I wonder if I could do something like that. And so I just went and the marathon plan I found, there was a few like from Running World, it just goes random, here's a calendar and they throw some workouts at you. The one that I thought seemed doable to me was literally a Men's Health magazine sub-3 marathon plan. And it was because it didn't have use your HR to decide your paces.
All this other weird
Everything
stuff.
else
Yeah,
was so complicated. So I chose this plan
I just want to run.
yeah.
Got it.
But I chose this plan and it seemed to work. I was like following do mile repeats, do this, do that. And I signed up for the Irving Marathon, was the first one that I could say I actually trained for. And that had to been, what year was that? 2021. So that was the first one. And I was like, I'm racing this. And I did great. I had 250 something.
No
And
way.
so I was like, wow, this training
This
it
training
slowly
plan is
came
great.
together over time. If you were to look at that first, oh, I'm sorry, I have to I don't know why my computer just went from 100 to 18%. If you were, hold on, let me just.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just edit this out.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what just happened.
As a matter of fact, I can hit pause.
It's weird. This computer must be getting old because when I started, I made sure it had 100 and now it says 16.
It happens.
But so I apologize. So I went and so I did that marathon. But when I started that plan, I remember it had some paces to do your mile repeats. And it was like if you're expecting to do a sub-3 marathon, you should be aiming for, I think it was like a 6-minute pace per mile repeats. And at the beginning of that plan, I could not get a single one at that pace. And I was just like, there's no way possible. I was like, why am I even doing this plan? It was silly, but it was still fun. And I enjoyed the training. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep going and see what happens. And then as you keep going, it's obviously you improve and you start to realize, wow, I'm starting to get it. It's starting to feel easier. And then race day, I raced it like you'd expect. Very positive splits for positive people. My first mile was like a 6:07 or something insane. And then the last miles were like 6:50 something.
Exactly.
But I got there. Those are some things you learn along the way. Maybe back in the beginning.
Love that story. And we'll continue that in a minute. But I want to go all the way back to soccer. So tell me about that. So were you playing soccer? And the reason I want to know is because to me, soccer players are very good at running in general. They become can become very good. And just are very good. Did you start in high school or tell me about that little journey?
Yeah, I started playing soccer when I was like 4 years old.
Okay.
I never really played competitively. And I don't know if it just difference from where I grew up. I grew up in Michigan. Yeah. We had some competitive soccer but I always played just recreational leagues. Okay. I did play in high school, but I basically played all my life. And then when I moved to Texas, I found there's a place in Richardson that I played a lot of the indoor at, but I played in Addison, and then outdoor was usually on Sundays. And outdoor was my favorite because I'm a run. I could run. I was always outside mid, and they send you down the field and you run. And I was always good at the just running the entire game.
So there was nothing there that just thought, oh, you ran overall, and we'll get to that later, 2:36.24 marathon. But there was nothing there that just said, hey, you didn't go to college for running or college for soccer, or you didn't do any of that.
I ran cross country in high school, but I always feel bad to this day, like with my coach, because I probably just never took it seriously. It was about hanging out with friends. And I remember what my coach actually messaged me when after one of my Houston marathons. And it was just comical because I didn't even run a 5K as fast as I was running a marathon now. And it's just like, it was just fun back then. I just don't know if maybe I didn't have the same potential back then, or I just didn't, not that you don't try, but it was just like, it wasn't on my radar. You're young. You're doing it because you're hanging out with friends.
Life and
it was just a different drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not to say I wasn't going as quick as I could on race day. It was just, maybe it took longer to develop. I don't actually know, but total transformation, I guess you could say.
No, it's amazing. I look back and I always think I'm almost 50. When I was 20, or I ran cross country and was like that. But if I had the same mindset that I had today than I did then, definitely I would have been 1,000 times better. Who knows what could have been? But your story is really pretty cool because you got really fast. You got fast really fast. You're running under a sub-3 marathon, and I don't know if it's your first marathon, but 2021, and it was, you only had a couple of years. So let's go back to that. So now you did the soccer, but you only did that recreationally, but you kept that going, and then you started running and getting into the marathon. What started to happen?
So I did run some marathons before. It was like, I actually ran the Dallas marathon like 12 years ago, but it was just another one of those. Yeah, I did. And it was just one of those things where it was almost like, oh, you're doing it? Okay, I'll do it. I never trained for it. I just played soccer. And then occasionally I would run on a Saturday, like here's a long run, which again was probably like, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. Probably like 14 miles max at the peak or whatever it was. There's probably some natural talents in there somewhere, but obviously you don't really know what you can even do when you're not training. Is a whole different
Yeah.
You just really want to push yourself more, and then you don't even know what you're capable of. If you would have told me, even when I started during the pandemic, I would have laughed at you if you could say you could run a 2:36 marathon. Absolutely not. Like, that pace is insane. But if you think about it, and then just one marathon, you try to keep taking off a little bit of time off, and then before you know it, you're like, let's go for it. Because it was the Olympic trials time was what I had wanted to attempt, obviously. Because I felt like I was close enough to where you might as well go for it. I might miss it, but yeah, why not try it? So it doesn't hurt anything to try. But I actually did miss it the first time by 15 seconds
I
at
saw
the
that.
Indianapolis Marathon. Yeah. So then, of course, had to try again. When you're 15 seconds off from the time, you got to try again. So I just saved some fitness for
All right.
Houston.
So I want to talk more about that, but I want to talk about that marathon that you ran under sub 3. So you ran that marathon, and that was, which marathon was it?
Irving.
Irving, that's right.
Mhm.
And so you just grabbed a training plan off the internet and said, I'm going to go do it. And it actually worked. So it sounds like there was some success there, which that's rare, but I love the story. And it just shows if you're focused in on a training plan, and it obviously was a good one, you might be able to hit that goal. So what was next after that? Did you start? So when you think about training, did you start running with a group, or you started running with that one event that you mentioned? So that's one. And then 2, was there like a group, or did that help at all? Or tell me more
Yeah.
about that.
I started running. The next marathon after that was the Boston Marathon because I'd qualified. I started running with a group. I actually initially just showed up one day with Plano Pacer, or not Plano Pacer, the Plano Running Club. And then I met some people who now we all run together as the group is organically grew into this group called Completely Sloth. So we run several times a week together. So once you start running with people, I think, in my personal opinion, it's a game changer because in a lot of ways you don't actually ever, if you can get comfortable, not that you're not pushing yourself, but I feel like them pulling me along at some of those workouts where I would have been happy with a pace that was slower just made all the difference because when you keep pulling, they keep pulling you along. And before you know it, you're like, wow, we're hitting some good splits here. And so without that group, even just the motivation just to get up in the morning and run and get it done. And they're a huge difference. And I don't even know if I would actually, once soccer places started reopening and things are changing, I don't know if I would have continued to run as much if I hadn't found such a nice core group of people that kept it going and kept me interested and engaged, or if I would have returned. I'm really not so sure, but
I did feel like
sure.
I feel like community is huge.
Absolutely.
And not just running for sure. The relationships you build, you learn a lot, not just from speed. Like you said, accountability is a big one. What to wear, what are other people doing to use for hydration? Maybe there's a dietitian that they see. Maybe there's a coach that they know of. Hey, they wear these socks, or I don't know. There's just a lot of little things that you learn along the way that you just didn't know that can increase your, whether it's speed or just endurance or whatever. And you've already mentioned a few. I agree, it's a game changer. And I'm glad you said that because one person has said to me, oh, I've always just run alone and I'm a 2:10 person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
that.
it's good to be able to both joke around with people and they're your friends. And of course you can run for 2.5 hours with them just talking about anything.
That's right. Yeah.
But at the same time, you can also have a bad workout or a day that's maybe not going so well, and they help you put it in perspective a bit too, because you're not going to nail necessarily every workout, and some days are going to feel heavier than others. And so it's good to have just a group of people who can also, not only encourage you, but also help you put things in perspective of if they have a bad day or you have a bad day, you can compare and just, okay, these are normal. We're all training. We're all going to have good races, bad races. Sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. You shake it off, you go for the next one. So it's good to have those people.
When was your next marathon then? Was it Indianapolis? Could have been Indianapolis, going from 250 to 236.
Irving, I ran Boston, and then I ran Houston.
Okay.
And I've done Houston now twice, but yeah.
Did you do Houston this last week or no?
I did not, no.
No, okay.
Nope. I've done it the full twice and the half the private.
Okay. I'm more of a half marathon person now. Just the training that it takes and the amount of effort and time you have to put into a marathon for me right now, it's just a lot. So
yeah.
Now, when did you go to Indianapolis? When was that race?
That would have been 2022.
2022?
we just entered 25. Yeah, I think
A few years ago. It says 2022. So yeah, I'm on
okay.
your page here.
Time's going, it's hard to remember how long things have been.
Time flies. There's been a lot of races since. But then you went to Indianapolis and you ran a 2:37. You said you're 15 seconds off. Tell me about your mindset before then. Were you trying to go to the Olympic or do the Olympic trials, or then how was the training kind of stuff?
During training, I actually wasn't going for the trials time at all. Training, that race was in November, so training is obviously the hottest months of the year.
Yeah.
So your paces are not so far off, but they're off enough to where you're adding a good 15 seconds per mile to be able to survive the summer heat, and it's still an extremely challenging run. It wasn't until people kept putting it on your radar and just they mentioned it, and I just wasn't really thinking that was even a possibility. And it wasn't until I had a cold morning in sometime mid-September where I had a workout that was, I think, like 14 miles with most of it at MP, and that I really was like, wow, the back half of that entire run was sub-6 pace. And so it was one of those where maybe this is possible. And so I kept thinking about it, and then you don't want to go out there and bonk, but it's like, how can you let that opportunity pass either? Maybe bonking is better than potentially missing it. And
100%.
And also going into those few nights before, that race was one of those random days, like the Dallas half this year. It was super cold the morning the day before, and super cold the next day a cold front came through. But for race day, it was like this humid, rainy, and there was like extreme winds. And it was just absolutely insane winds. Yeah. And so it was rough on that back half of it. Just getting blown around out there. It's unfortunate. It really was. It was like 15 seconds, but I knew I had it because that was a tough race.
Yeah.
It was one of those where you were frustrated because you didn't hit it, but then I had also never won a marathon before. And I was like, it's hard to be too upset at the same time. So,
you won that marathon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty fast, but Indianapolis is pretty popular too.
Yeah. I think it was just a rough year because of the weather. It was tough and people were falling off towards the back because the miles like 18 to 25 or something was just straight into the wind, and it was like hitting a wall.
And you still ran a 2:37. That was a PR, right?
I had it. I felt like I had it, but
yeah.
No, and it's actually terrible because I think I still had it, but I am not very good at telling time. I'm not very good at doing math in my head when it comes
especially when running.
I'm in the zone. So we had two pacers that were pacing the OTQ time. Yeah. And both of them fell off. So there was no more people pacing. And then before
you're running too fast.
I was actually the only person. I was like looking around, like even the pace group starts to fall apart, which is natural towards the end of a marathon. Sure. People start to it spaces out a lot more. But for some reason, you never do this. It's so stupid to do this. But I was just like, wow, my watch says I'm going like a 5:52 pace, knowing like I had even had like under a bridge, I had this really fast split. And I was like, I knew it wasn't right, but I was like, this has to be, I've got to be close. And all I had to do was do some math in those final miles. And I probably would have been like, oh, I need to sprint this in. But it was instead, it was like, okay, I just need to finish this. This is really tough. I'm here with the lead biker. I just need to finish this. And I know I'm going to get it in the back of my mind. It wasn't really about, it was just like, I already got this. I just have to finish strong. So we're not going to go sprint again. We're not going to change anything. Let's finish. And then when I crossed the tape, it was like, wait, I was so happy. But at the same time, I was like, I think I just missed that. I got the time.
You gotta wear one of those wristbands that tells you where, I don't know if you've ever done it before, but there's these wristbands that tell you the exact time you should be at. Instead of the pace, it tells you the time. At mile 2, you should be at this. At mile 20, you should be at this, etc.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of tunnel vision when I'm in a race. And I've had friends who've commented like, you don't remember that one thing on the course? And I'm like, I don't know. There was a bridge? I just run. Black everything out.
I do the same thing. I do the same thing, not at your level. I just like to, when I'm running, just, especially racing, I don't really see much. I don't hear anybody if they're like, oh, Chris. I don't know. I didn't even know you were there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Especially because I had music on it. It sounds like a good and a really great marathon, one way or another. So when you went into the next one, was the next one kind of, hey, I'm going to go in and do this 6 months? What was that like? Knowing that you could get that time, but you didn't, so you knew you had to go somewhere else. What were you thinking there?
I felt like it was close enough to where I wanted to just keep my fitness and jump into the next marathon. That was November, and then I ended up doing the Houston Marathon in the beginning of January. It was like a 5-week out change. And so I basically took a week off. Basically, I think it was almost all the way off, and then just did some real small stuff and just a few solid workouts in that third week, and then retapered again. And I did well. And that was the 2:36:20.
What did that training look like then? You said you didn't really go through a hardcore training because you were already trained. You took a week off and then got back into it and then just did another taper?
Kind of, I think so. And I'm not even sure I remember, but I do know I ran like the Dallas half in between there.
Okay.
And obviously,
There's
that's
some
a
speed.
race where you're pushing your fitness to some pretty high levels. And so that was probably a good, like, final, again, another tune up before race day. And I had a great race. Actually, that was actually my PR. So I was like, again, you're just retapering in from there, and it had another couple weeks during the holidays where you're just coasting.
Yeah. And so then you go to Houston. What was that like? I don't know if you remember too much about. I'm sure you remember that race, right? You ran your best, right?
That was
Tell me about
like
that.
I remember the bad parts of another hot and humid race.
Yeah.
It was another one of those things like, oh, why? But that was when Houston was 65 and really humid, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, because was that? Well, I was really hoping like the second much easier. And it wasn't, I got it. So it was great. But I was like, oh my goodness, you're struggling you're unsure because so much can happen in a marathon. Just because you had one race where you're 15 seconds, you might blow up for the second one. And wind is different than humidity. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And you never take it for granted. You just don't know how one race can go. But thankfully it went well. I was pretty steady with splits and obviously happy with the result. It was all worked out.
That's pretty great. And did you run the trials yet? Did you qualify for it?
Yeah.
Let's go into that.
Last year, February of last year.
Yeah.
And that went okay. So actually,
it was really hot in Florida.
It was really hot, yeah. I would say I am very proud of my result considering if that. So
yeah.
After Houston, I was just jumping into random races, not really doing anything, like no training blocks or anything like that. And then over the summer, I started training because I wanted to do Chicago before the trial. So it was like it was another summer build, but things didn't go very well because I initially ended up with plantar fasciitis. And then it took a long time, and I ended up having to take time off it. And then, unfortunately, while I was doing that, I had another minor injury that I just didn't really think too much about because I didn't understand what it was. And it was bilateral hamstring tendinopathy. So both of my like glute upper hamstring area was just always really sore. And I never really understood, did I overlift? Did I do too much? And it didn't dawn on me till way after I should have gotten it more taken care of that it was a tendinopathy problem. Unfortunately, I actually do what all stupid runners do is I actually ran Chicago, but I didn't run for the 2 weeks prior, and I just jumped in it, ran it with a friend, and eventually she even dropped me in the very end because my glutes and hamstrings were so tight that I was like limp walking, not limp running, I guess you should say, because it was so stiff. I don't even know how to explain this feeling because it was unfortunate, but I stopped. Obviously, I was like, afterwards, I was taking some time off. Obviously, the trials are way more important, and I couldn't, unfortunately, I don't even want to tell you the amount of money I've spent now on shockwave therapy. I've done PRP injection, and unfortunately, I still have this tendinopathy, and I cannot get rid of it. Yeah. I did run the trials, and it went very well considering I had the worst training block. Leading up to the trials, I ended up dropping every other workout because it was just so uncomfortable. I guess the way I always feel like you run with a board attached to the back of your legs and you can't you can't stride anymore. Yeah. And so it's been really frustrating. And so I have the shockwave worked a little bit, then it returned, and the PRP worked really great for 6 months. Then it's returned now. It's much more manageable than a year ago. I actually was like, it was so bad then that you start to question if you even should continue running because not that I'm a stubborn person, unfortunately. I'm a little too stubborn and I don't quit when I should.
Yeah. Well,
compared to last year, like I was running and it was just like, this is not fun anymore. I don't know why I'm doing this. Like I'm not getting any faster because I'm trying to push and it's like my legs will not work. They're not working. So I actually got PRP 6 months ago-ish, and it worked really well. I had a great build up to this Dallas half this past
Yeah. How'd
few
you
weeks
do?
ago.
You did pretty well from what I remember.
Did okay, yeah. It's one of those
Okay.
things you have to keep everything in perspective. I had a decent time, another windy-ish, humid race.
Yeah. It's a tough race.
Yeah, the build was better than the race, so I
Mm.
feel like there's probably I still have some good. I still want to have some good races, and would love to PR again. So that race was a little bit disappointing, but it wasn't
Jennifer,
bad. I mean,
it is so, it's obvious you can have a PR. Yes, you got to get through your injuries and things like that, but look, you've gone through some hard races that are hot, humid, whatever.
yeah,
Just think whenever you have a nice, not windy, a perfect day, which sometimes hard to find, but
it is hard
when
to
you
find.
do find it and you're
Yeah,
at your peak, you're gonna, I don't know what you could do, but I think you're gonna kill it. I think that's pretty cool.
yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm
I think,
still
yeah, you should
holding
definitely
out
think
hope. It's still in me.
it is. How old are you? I
38.
mean, just say when you hit 40, you'll be in the Masters.
Mhm.
And there's some really big opportunities there, I think.
Yeah, you always have those days where you still have more in you. And you could do it. If someone was telling me the same thing, I absolutely know I would tell them, "Oh yeah, you still
Yeah, of
have it.
course.
You're gonna have it." But when you also are the one who's unsure and you're seeing you're doing tempos and stuff now, you're like, "This is so far off from where I was before." And so you start to
Exactly.
feel discouraged. But you got to take a step back. And even if I don't, I'm very hopeful that I can PR again and have some amazing times. But even if I never PR again, just being able to look at even just Dallas's race, I still just ran a half marathon at a sub-6 pace. And again, I have to keep that in perspective.
Yeah.
That's still incredible.
Sure,
It's still an
fast as
amazing
hell.
race, but you also want to see what your full potential is. It's hard not to.
Hey, here's what somebody told me, and I really, this is like, Chris, I've been running for 30 or however long years, right? A long time. And he goes, I think it's actually, maybe it wasn't 30 years, it was Jose Lopez. I think he was telling me this. He goes, I see PRs as decades, right? Because when I was 18 or 19 is going to be different than my 20s. It's going to be different than my 30s and 40s, et cetera. One, you're a lot younger. And especially if you've run that long. For you, though, you haven't ran that long. And you've got really fast, really quickly. So there's lots of opportunity from that standpoint for you. So sky's still the limit for you.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. And you haven't lost anything. You just have to get over your injuries. And
Yeah. And I just want to make sure it's still fun. That's the most important thing at the end of the
absolutely.
day is I do think I'll get some good times and I'll be able to hit some strong races. At the end of the day, I'm having fun. I have a great group of friends that are all very fast and motivate each other. And that makes all the difference in the world. Even if I don't ever hit those times again, it's just a matter of this is still a hobby I want to do. And yeah, you have to get over the injuries just so you enjoy it as a hobby.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to want to even shoot for anything. But then when it is just enjoyable and you do think of it as, yeah, you take it very seriously. We train hard, but at the end of the day, like you're still making sure you can laugh at yourself and have fun. And that's when I feel like you'll start hitting the PRs. You just, this is it's a love hobby. It's something you want to do.
Usually I would say to people, it's not like we're elite athletes, but you are an elite athlete. So it's a different mindset. But you're not getting paid necessarily to do this for a living. I assume you have a full-time job, and what you're doing full-time plus running as fast as you are and the training and everything that you have to go through is pretty amazing. So I know that you're getting over some injuries. You just ran Dallas out. What's next for you? As you
I don't know. I'm somewhat building for a marathon, but I don't know honestly if I'm even in this marathon. I am trying to get into the championship entry of London, and there's supposed to let us know by the end of this month. So I don't know if I will end up getting in, but I do have a couple of backups in mind. I just don't know. I don't know how seriously I'm going to train for it because I just want to make sure I'm not pushing too soon or pushing too much, or if workouts start to be more of a discomfort than a joy, then I'll pull it back and I'll run it for fun because I haven't run a purely fun marathon in quite a long time. And so if that's what it ends up becoming, then that's what it ends up becoming. But I would love to run London either way, but I don't know yet if I'll get in.
Yeah, my wife is running Boston, so it's I think it'd be her 12th time in a row. And so then she finally got into London. Getting to London is hard, but she finally got into that. So she's going to go the next week.
Is she really?
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's one thing I don't ever want to do.
I think she's going to jog it,
Because
because
that's still hard though. That's good for her.
Yes, yeah. But you can't say no because Boston's her thing,
Yeah.
right? So no way she's gonna not do. You've had quite the journey. I really love some of the things that you're doing and really appreciate one you coming on, but also just you coming on and talking about that. Did I miss anything that you really wanted to talk about and that I just missed?
I don't know. I don't think so. I tend to start rambling and going off track a lot, but
Hopefully
I
I kind
can't
of
think of
kept it.
anything.
My goal is always just to keep it moving in the right direction. You tell me your story and let's go back here. Let's go do that. And that's it.
Yeah, you did actually. Hold on. Let's go back. Let's go
Yeah.
back to soccer.
What
But that
one
was,
thing I will ask is when you look at you played soccer, so I don't know if that helps too, but when you look at nutrition and things like that, is there any kind of things that running taught you from a nutrition standpoint to say, hey, I could get faster if I do this, or I just feel better when I eat this and that? Any kind of nuggets there, or maybe you don't care about nutrition? I don't know.
I probably don't focus on it quite as much as a lot of people. I know if I'm building towards a marathon, I'll very rarely drink any alcohol. And if I do, it's very minimal. And I won't drink like any for the final 3 weeks. But outside of that, I don't follow any particular diets or anything like that or eat anything in particular. I do tend to just try to eat healthy in general. And whether I nail that or not, it's probably like relative. It's not, obviously I eat junk too, but it's just you try to focus more on just being healthy in general.
Yeah.
But I don't have any necessarily nutrition tidbits of anything particular. But I will say when you start to learn from other people is like probably like a lot of those first marathons, I could promise you that I probably never once took a gel during a long run or even during some of those marathons. And then you realize how much better you feel during the run or even during the next day or obviously during a marathon, what a difference maker that was. And I feel like when you're young, you're just like, I don't need it. I'm strong enough to make it to the end. And you do make it to the end, but whether you feel great the next day or benefiting from it. But now it's crazy when you actually end up getting injured is you look at everything as, do I need to take more collagen? And tart cherry juice helps you recover. And so you start just, unfortunately, you end up in that rabbit hole of Googling what's going to get rid of this. And there's no magic that gets rid of anything, even with nutrition. Obviously,
a little bit of rest, stretching, PT, all kinds of
there's
things that are just hard work. Yeah.
But
no magic
if
drink.
me drinking tart cherry juice would magically fix this, I would have had it gone overnight.
When you look at some of your marathons, how many gels do you usually take during a hard marathon?
I usually take one like every 3 to 4 miles.
Okay.
Probably 5 miles would be my max of a gap. It just like dawns on you. You got to remember to take them. But usually I pack 5 or 6 and then sometimes I'll end up finishing one at the line. You're like, I don't know why I have it extra in my hand, but the intent is always more. But when you're like in the moment, but I do tend to take every 3, 4, 5 miles. And it depends on which one. Cause there's bigger ones and smaller ones, calories, caffeine, but
there's some now that it's interesting that don't work and like you'll take it, especially like right before if you're hungry or whatever, but it doesn't start kicking in until 15 minutes. It's not like a complete sugar thing like some of those that just kick in right then.
Yeah, and then there's some you feel like you need water with and some that you don't really need water with. One of the things I started telling people and I just felt like it worked for me is never skip a water stop, even if you don't need it, because half the time I felt like I would go to a water stop and you'd get like a sip of it and the rest would be like you throw it in your face or you would just miss the cup. And so it's like when I started running is just never skip a single one. That way, if I'm getting only half the water in each cup or if I miss a few, then no big deal. It doesn't matter. You'll still have enough. But if you skip some water stops and then you're also missing part of the water at different places, then you might run into a real problem later in the race. And I remember some of my first few was just like after I started training seriously, it's just take the water. Every single time, take the water. And I do think that was helpful.
I'm a big fan of carrying a bottle or whatever just to run with. A lot of people don't like to carry things, but
I don't like to
carry it. I don't either,
it.
but I get thirsty.
Yeah, I do in the summer when I'm running long runs like with around here because you never know if there's going to be water if it's on. But during a race, I just don't. Like, if there's at least a water stop every few miles, I'm like, okay, I can manage this. It would be nice to have it every second that you can just drink on your own time. But I don't know. I don't like carrying it.
You just like just nothing that's holding you back. My wife calls it my sippy cup because if I'm running a 5K, 10K, half, it doesn't matter. I pretty much have it because I just get thirsty. And the last thing I want to be is running as fast as I can and thirsty. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd rather not do it, but I do. So
Yeah.
Jennifer, this has been great. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I wish you nothing but luck. And so anything else that you wanted to bring up, or?
I don't think so.
No?
I think it's,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and please rate and review us. And we just had Jennifer Pope on the phone. So thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Appreciate it.